Once upon a time, and you will respond time. There lived an old man, and his name was Mr. Do-Good. Mr. Do-Good lived in a village where he was constantly seen playing with children, and he was very popular amongst the children of the village. Children would run off from their mothers when they saw Mr. Do-Good come. There was this particular woman in the community who had one daughter, whose daughter used to love Mr. Do-Good also. But this woman just hated this poor old man and hated the frenzy he created amongst children and hated his popularity. Who is he that our children should be so eager to go to? She hated him to the extent of planning how to get rid of him. Every time the kids saw Mr. Do-Good, who had nothing for himself, no food, lived in a shack, but just had a kind of happiness about him, they would run to him, and people often gave him gifts, and he never hesitated sharing his gifts of food with the children. On this fateful day, this woman who hated Mr. Do-Good prepared a sandwich, and she poisoned the sandwich and said, now we will get rid of him. As he passed by her house, she said, Do-Good, come, I have something for you. This was really strange to Do-Good. And he had a way, the reason why the kids used to call him Do-Good in the first place was because he had a simple saying, like a parable. You do good for yourself. You do bad for yourself. And because this woman had never been one of those to give him any gifts, when she handed him the sandwich, he said, thank you. Remember, you do good for yourself. You do bad for yourself. He put the sandwich in his bag that he usually carried across his chest and walked away. Went about his business, going from home to home, doing different chores for people. And late that afternoon, he was walking, going back to his hut, and he saw this little girl come from school. And she said, Do-Good, what do you have in the bag? And he said, oh, I have sandwich. And actually it was your mother who gave me the sandwich. She said, I'm hungry. And Do-Good said, well, have the sandwich. And the little girl ate the sandwich. She got home and complained to her mother about tummy ache. And her mother said to her, what did you eat? And she said, well, nothing except for a sandwich that Mr. Do-Good gave me. The mother fainted because she knew that in that particular sandwich was poison. Unfortunately, this innocent child died, and the story spread across the community like wildfire. When it got to Do-Good, after mourning the death of this little girl, he used his favorite quote, you do good for yourself. You do bad for yourself. The moral of the story, and I think the story explains itself, but the moral of the story is, in this life, we all live in a full circle. Wherever you start from and whatever you do, it always comes back to you. And so it's always good to find the opportunity to do good, because good will always come back to you rather than doing evil, because of course it will come back to you, and the consequence, like that of this woman, will be grave. The end. This story is my mother's favorite story, and I think she's handed this story down to many generations. I mean, like this, now we're into her third generation of grandchildren, so even or children. the first grandchild, the first, her children, our children, and some of my sisters have children who are now having children. So she finds a way of telling this story to all of the little children in the family. So even my 4-year-old have heard this story more than once. And for her, the world is such a nice place if we make it nice, and it's such an evil place if we make it evil. So it's important for us to continue to pass down the need for young children to cultivate the good qualities of doing good rather than doing evil. And so I find myself loving it, being in the field of social justice. And really, if you compare this story to the way warlords or leaders who are valiant conduct themselves, you find out that they all end up in the same place, either in prison or dead, with no positive, no correct legacy left about them. You know, so I feel it's a simplified version of do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly.